What's going on, Perform24 family? Levi Jaeckel back with another video. I'm actually pretty fired up to make this video for a couple reasons. One, I've got an awesome product. Two, I'm using the garage gym for an anticipated and an intended purpose. And then three, I have a very good opportunity to bust out one of my favorite shirts. So this is going to be a review on Bret Contreras' thruster pad. I always call this a thruster bar for some reason. So Bret, I'm sorry if I mess up the name of your product, but I call this a thruster bar in the gym all the time. But it is a thruster pad. I've also heard him refer to it as a rotisserie bar. So I'm not really sure people know what to call this. We call this a thruster bar, but this is a way to add a hip thrust mechanism to your power rack. And I am using this more and more and more the more that I have it in the gym. I'm gonna put this down just so I don't have to hold it in my lap the whole video. If you followed my training for a while, you know that I absolutely love and obsess over functional glutes. For our athletic population, the glutes play a big power role, and your glutes have to function right if you're going to be a high-performing athlete. And in our lifestyle athlete population group, dysfunctional glutes can lead to all kinds of issues. You know, low back pain, quad dominance, which can lead to knee pain, all kinds of things. So the glutes are your biggest muscle in your body. They play the biggest role, and they have to be right. Traditionally, I've used hip thrust for a couple reasons, but one, I really like to use them with new clients. And that reason is because, you know, new clients sometimes have a hard time activating their glutes. They've never used them in their life. You know, and this goes for both like the pro athlete group and like the lifestyle athlete group. They don't know how to use their glutes. And throwing them in into a hip thrust is almost like a dummy-proof exercise. You know, you throw some weight on their hips and tell them to drive those hips to the ceiling, and more often than not, they're going to be using their glutes correctly. So I love to just hammer their glutes right out of the gate with something like this. Now, historically, I've kind of used two different variations. One, I've used a hip thrust from the floor, which is pretty convenient, pretty easy to coach. However, the range of motion isn't very high. So, you know, sometimes, like, especially if I'm working with like ladies or something like that, the range of motion is less than 12 inches, which that's, in my opinion, not adequate to really get those glutes working right. The second option that I use is a bench. Now that kind of almost gives us the opposite problem sometimes. So sometimes I'm working with ladies that are a little shorter, you know, or even like youth athletes, and that bench is too high for them. So the angles are off a little bit, and it's awkward to kind of get set up in sometimes, you know, like getting a lot of weight up onto your hips while you're also trying to get your shoulders onto the bench is awkward. And then inevitably, sometimes the bench will rock off of the ground, right? And that, you know, if you've ever been in that position where you're trying to load up a heavy hip thrust onto a bench and that bench starts to rock on you, it's nerve-wracking. I hate doing heavy hip thrusts off a bench for that reason. Now, there is a hip thrust platform that a couple different companies make, but again, that is not a very good option for me. So that's not a good option because one, the hip thrust platform and bench combo, it takes up a lot of space, and it's expensive and it's not very versatile. So, you know, I use hip thrusts a lot, but I don't use hip thrusts a lot to put or enough to put like a dedicated space in my gym to a hip thrust platform. So I've never really been interested in that. And as far as I know, those are kind of the only options that are out there until this thruster pad from Bret Contreras. And to be honest, I didn't even buy this. One of my clients saw it, she wanted it, and she bought it, and I didn't even know the product existed until she brought it through the doors to the gym. And so now, you know, we use this bar in her programming, of course, but then we also use it in a whole bunch of different of our clients' programming. And I tell you what, this thing is unbelievable. So what I like about this is that it's not terribly expensive. It's $200, but compared to like a dedicated platform, it's much less expensive than that. But two, it stores very, very well. So this just kind of goes into the closet. It kind of just has its own little home. And when we need it, we just go grab it. It's very, very lightweight. I'd say it's probably, I don't know, 20 pounds or so, maybe even less than that. You can easily carry it around with one hand. So, you know, it's easy to maneuver. It's easy to store, which is awesome. But then second of all, it does its job extremely well. So we just bring those hooks down low on the rack. We load this thing up onto the rack, just like a regular barbell. You just put it on the J hooks, and then you can use it to push against. And just based off of the design, the bar will rotate as you drive to the top of your hip thrust. So up until we got this pad or this bar or whatever this thing is, it's kind of like a bar pad hybrid piece of equipment. But up until we had this, I haven't been able to do banded hip thrusts at all. And I love banded hip thrusts. I think that's one of the best ways to train the movement, just because that end range of motion and that full hip extension is what makes the hip thrust special to begin with. So if you really stress that end range of motion with bands, it's an even more effective exercise. But using this bar, I've been able to band up the barbell in my half racks at the gym. And I haven't been able to do that up to this point. So, for that reason by itself, I think this is extremely practical, extremely useful. I think it's priced correctly. And I wanted to share this because I haven't seen a whole lot of people share this piece of equipment yet. And I'm loving it more and more and more and more. All right, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you want to see more content about the stuff I'm doing in the gym, or if you want to see more content about what I'm doing here in the garage, or if you want my opinion on some of the other pieces of equipment that I kind of find interesting or unique, please consider subscribing. All of that stuff is kind of happening here on the YouTubes. But anyways, always appreciate you guys. Train hard, live full, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh my gosh, I just made that whole video and I did not explain the shirt. So anyways, never trust a man with weak glutes. This is kind of an inside joke that we've had at the gym for a long time. And last summer I decided to throw it on a t-shirt. So the whole concept, ladies, if you're dating a guy with weak glutes, he clearly is not detail oriented, and he clearly takes shortcuts. And then fellas, if you're going into business with someone with weak glutes, this guy's got a little bit of a shaky foundation. He's a little exposed. Might be susceptible to breakdown. So anyways, lots of funny things that you can talk about with weak glutes. And like I said, it ended up on a t-shirt. If you want to buy the t-shirt, it's available on the shop. It's always there. Or if you want to send it to somebody, maybe that would be the better move. But it's always there. Okay, that's the story behind this t-shirt. This time I can say, train hard, live full, and I'll catch you in the next video.